Well, hello there. It's been a long, long time. I will not be reading your comments or paying attention to comments because I am in the vehicle. If there's something important that you want to say to me, you can email me directly. That is in the information here on our About section of our page. I'm sorry for the road noise if there is any. I've got you mic'd up. Thought I'd take a minute and chat for a bit. And I posted something. Those of you that follow us on Instagram or follow us on Facebook, if you don't, you could check that out. Post a lot of content there daily that we don't share here with the longer format videos. But I shared a bit of news, and the news was about something that happened yesterday in Africa. About 400 school children were abducted. And I just captured the headline and shared that headline, and I said, as we sit and sip coffee this morning and we think about all the things we complain about, traffic, the cost of taxes, the cost of fuel, going to work, we complain about all of the various things that are in our life, right? The size of our backyard's not big enough, this and that. At the same time, on the other side of the planet, there's hundreds of children held captivity by a militant group, and they've been doing it for years. I've actually got a family member from the same region. Thousands and thousands and thousands of young people forced into the sex trade, forced into becoming child soldiers, oftentimes being forced to murder other people in those tasks, and oftentimes being killed before they ever are released from captivity. Why I posted it is I said it is very easy to forget how wonderful our lives really are. It's very easy as we sit in the comfort of even the smallest apartment, in the comfort of even the smallest house, in the comfort of even your rusty vehicle. It's easy to forget how bad off people have it. A friend of mine, Army Ranger, he was at the Battle of Mogadishu. Some of you know that story because of the movie Black Hawk Down, made about the Battle of Mogadishu, the Day of the Ranger. And he has a memory while being there in Somalia. There were three children, all around the same puddle. One was drinking out of the puddle, one was bathing in the puddle, and one was urinating in the puddle. And it was just this memory burned into his head that he had shared with me. Perspective is very meaningful in our life. What I'm talking about right now is, I share this moment of clarity for myself. Hey man, I got to remember to be grateful because life is fleeting and there are so many things that we have to be grateful for. And the immediate response of so many people is, it used to be better, or this country's falling apart, or the such and such political party or political person is about to ruin it. You are completely missing the point of gratitude. That is literally what you're doing, is saying, I'm unable to look at something for what it is. In this case, I can look at something and just call it evil. I don't need to compare it to something. I don't need to diminish it by saying that there's other evils that happen in the world. For example, you could say this thing happened in Africa. You could say, not my problem, it's another kind of people. The point is gratitude. It's very easy for us to just get into a frame of mind, a state of mind where we cannot just appreciate what's right in front of us. This is really what the Stoics, what all of the writing of the Stoics was about. A ragged and raw and total appreciation for that which you have right in front of you. Appreciating life in its simplicity. You know, having been on both sides of the spectrum, I mean, I've been at one point in my life, was as poor as a person could be without being homeless. I mean, broke as you could be. I've been there, and I've been to the other side where I could afford nice things. I've been to the side where I couldn't put gas in my car or buy parts to fix the car to make it run to even go to work. And I've been on the other side where I could walk into a dealership and buy a new one if I wanted to. I've been on one side where I couldn't buy diapers for my child, and I've been on the other. So I get it. I get it. You've got to be grateful for what's in front of you and be mindful. There's nothing wrong with just looking at something for what it is, and I think it's a broken way of thinking when we cannot just observe and think. I believe Thomas Carlyle was the one that said, I believe it was Thomas Carlyle, but if somebody looks it up and I'm wrong, please put it in the comments. He said, silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves together. Silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves together. Now, that was a fairly old statement compared to our vocabulary. He was a great thinker, turn of the century. But our brain is so bombarded by a million bits of information every second. Now, the study of how the human brain and our senses take in information and parse that information. This is something we talk about in our training. You know, side note from my bigger point, but we always talk about in the combatives and training world about paying attention. The problem with paying attention is that there's always something to pay attention to. The trick is learning what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. Because your brain, while it is an amazing blob of energy in your head, has a finite amount of processing power. As we get tired, as we get wore out, hungry, malnourished, sleep deprived, overworked, that capacity diminishes even more. So good training helps us decide what to pay attention to. A simple example is, I'm not going to draw my gun when a child walks up to me, right? That's silly. I know that I shouldn't, or do not need to do that. In fact, PTSD, some components of PTSD is our brain becoming overworked and overtaxed because a person becomes hypervigilant. And then it's a cascade of problems where that person now cannot get rest for their brain to rejuvenate and heal. And that now perpetuates a cycle. Back to the original point. We have to be able to compartmentalize things and be able to look at something for what it is. When we always, go ahead, ma'am, letting somebody in here. When we always inject our dogma, and you know, that's a fun thing. You know, in our classes, we talk about every man thinks he's the best driver. He can handle problems. He can start a fire. He can run the grill. You know, men, for the most part, think they can handle stuff. They're great lovers. We also all like to think that we are able to look at information and deduce the truth or see the truth. We're all blinded by things. We're all blinded by the preconceived ideas that we have built into our mind. Some of those things came about from your parents, maybe the religion you were raised in, maybe the school and the people that you were around, but we all have a framework with which we view the world, an optic that we're looking through when we view the world. That's not really something that you can argue. Our brains, as we are created, are growing and cultivating into adulthood, cultivating this operating system of ours, which this is why it is so important that we pay such close attention to our children. As a father, I can look back and think of things that I could have and should have done different. But in my own ignorance, because I was still a young father whose brain was still growing and maturing, it's not an excuse, but some things don't click. That's why as we get older, we say, geez, why didn't I see that? Why didn't I catch that? But when we can't, even for a second, take a look at information and see it for what it is without immediately injecting our own preconceived ideas, that is really what the spirit is of racism, right? You see something, and this goes for any color. When you see something and you automatically say, because of that person's skin color, and this is oftentimes at a subconscious level, I feel this way, or I think this certain thing. That's not always a bad thing either. When I see that certain type of person, oftentimes it leads to violence, or in the past it's led to this or that. And again, I'm not talking about any person or people of any specific color, but that is a normal thing that is bred into you. If there was a dog in your neighborhood that every time you walk past the house, that dog ran out to the end of its leash, barking, trying to bite you, you would eventually begin to pay attention and maybe even deviate your path just in case that leash ever broke. You know, if you're a child and something traumatic happens to you, you get burned, you fall, you almost drown, something like that. Oftentimes that can so leave a mark, such an indelible mark on the psyche of a young person that as they get older, they may decide, I don't want to go in the water. I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of fire, because that one thing left such a brand in my brain that I can't get past it. And that's problematic for a lot of people. I know grown-ups that have never been to a funeral of their loved ones because they're so scared of dead bodies. I know loved ones that will not walk near a pool, even a kiddie pool, because they have such a rabid fear of water. To some of us, that seems ludicrous, but then again, we haven't walked in their shoes. There again lies the point I'm trying to make. We take in information and we immediately say, that's insane. But is it? It might be through the optics of your life, through the way that you view the world, but it's not through theirs. And therein lies the truth of us trying to communicate with others. When we can't see people for who they are, what they're trying to convey or relay to the world. I'm stopping my vehicle so I can pay attention to you now, and I've got some grocery shopping to do, if you must know. Well, there you go. You know, it's interesting. I see some of you guys are having side discussions about pistols and stuff, and that's cool. It's cool that you're able to have a ongoing conversation as I'm talking about something completely different. And I think that, again, also illustrates my point. Why am I talking about this, and what's the desired end state of the discussion? You know, we've got a lot of people talking about what's going to happen after the new president is sworn in. We've got a lot of people talking about the state of America. We've got people talking about COVID. Number one concern, be grateful. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful for what's in your life. Be grateful for who's around you. Be grateful that you're walking, talking, breathing, able to do whatever it is you're doing. Be actually filled with joy because of it. Because at some point your life will come to an end. There are tons of people across this world that would love the opportunities that you and I have. That being said, when we can't separate ourselves from the negative thoughts that we fill our head up with, this world sucks, this country's going to hell in a handbasket, we're going to get all of our guns taken away, etc. I think what it does is it makes us completely ineffective at living, completely ineffective at getting something done. It makes us completely ineffective at being able to affect any real change. What are my thoughts on the vaccine? I think there are millions and millions and millions of people alive today because of vaccinations. I think that vaccines have caused harm to some people's bodies, but I think by and large, most of us, if you're watching this and you live in a first world country, most of us have alive today have never seen somebody die of polio. We're not seeing people with things like tuberculosis. We're not seeing the things that killed millions and millions and millions of people. So the Rona vaccination is evil. Sure. I'm not going to make a comment for or against it, and here's why. I love data. I love facts. I love data. I love facts. I love data. I love facts. Here's a really cool fact. Most of us are not going to funerals for children every month. Go to a local cemetery that's got people buried in it 120 years in up. You will see in the 1870s, 80s, 90s to today. So don't do a vaccine. I'm not going to have my conversation sidelined by fear either. So my phone's blowing up over here. I'm sorry. You will see in those cemeteries grave after grave after grave after grave of young people who died from things that none of us ever contracted because of vaccines. We live longer today and are healthier today than we ever have been. That's a fact. Look at the timeline of man's average lifespan. It's starting to decline here in America because we're fat. We don't exercise. We sit on our ass all day. We eat things that are loaded with processed sugars, and that's why. So we're starting to die of things like diabetes, heart disease, and other cardiovascular related diseases like stroke. As of, or as far as things like, if you don't want to take a vaccine, I don't care. I train people on how to use firearms for self-defense, and I also sometimes have civil war. If you're talking about a civil war in America now, I'm not engaging in such a lunatic conversation, if that is what you're talking about. Speaking of Civil War, have you ever visited a Civil War battlefield? I have. I try to visit as many of the Revolutionary War and Civil War sites as possible. The Civil War on our soil took more American lives than all the other wars that we were involved in combined. So here's the thing about conspiracy. Some of you know this about me, some of you don't. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist because I've been around enough people at high levels of government, at high levels of industry, and high levels of business to realize most humans are not smart enough. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of smart people and there's way more dumb people, and it's just too easy for dumb people to remain dumb. People, even though we have this access to all the information in the world, okay, enlightened and preparing. I've got a lot of friends that are in medical research and in the medical field. It's pretty darn easy to actually get good information on it, especially as soon as that vaccine shows up in a hospital lab. Anybody can put it underneath a microscope. That's actually not true. There's tons of opposition. There's tons of people doing third-party research. Don't take it if you don't want to. I probably will not because I don't need to. I'm not much of a vaccine taker for things that my body is strong enough to fight off. Not smart enough, but they are stupid and corrupt enough. So corruption's an interesting thing. Corruption is, to be corrupt, one must have a moral code. And there's a lot of people that toss around things like corruption and things of that nature or conspiracy, yet the person tossing it around also has no moral code. I'm in a parking lot. If you're going to say anything about my seatbelt, I'm just moving to a better parking spot here. Okay, so anyway, I'm not going to spend my time having conspiracy talk. It's a waste of life to me. So here's the point. Having been involved in political campaigns, political fundraising, the effective change of laws on a state and national level, I have a pretty basic understanding of the process. The interesting thing is I barely even have an education, and why I'm telling you that is if I can do it, you can do it. I'm not going to make this conversation much deeper than that. But the conspiracies are really about people not feeling that they have the ability to do something or to affect change in the world. They assume that things are deeper and harder than they really are. They're really not. How many of you went out and bought a bunch of shit during the beginning of Corona and started filling your house up with stuff? A lot of people did. Yes, we all can make this world. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that indeed. At the end of the day, here's my point here. Conspiracy is a matter of people committing crime, not feelings. Well, no, conspiracy is not just about crimes. People can conspire against others for good. A conspiracy is not just about crime. And again, I'm not going to have my point sidelined by nonsense, and I don't mean to be dismissive. This is exactly the point of my discussion. I spend a lot of time dismissing things, and it's not because I feel I'm more intelligent. I'm not. I see things for what they are. Be grateful for all that you have. If you don't like what's going on in the world around you, do something about it. If you don't like, Walther PPQ is one of the best guns on the market. That's why we've been telling people about it for years. If you don't like what's going on in your life, change it. Quit deciding that there's some powerful being or entities over you that let you do it. And as far as if you tuned in late, you can watch. You can go back. Yeah, conspiracies are any people getting together in creating a plan or idea that affects some type of change. Our revolution was a conspiracy. The 56 signers of our revolution conspired against the crown. When me and my friends sat down and decided we were going to change state law, by definition, we were conspiring. I'm reading some of these. No thumbs up. It's not thumbs up. Oh, okay. I got you from here. My point, guys, final thought before I jump out of the car. You are going to live. You are going to die. I do hope that you are able to spend more time being grateful for the wonderful things that you have in this life rather than just fixating on all of the bullshit that everybody puts out into the world. See, we talk about the media. These platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all of these platforms where we have information getting pumped out, it's all the same thing. It's people putting their ideas, their concepts, their thoughts out into the ether, hoping to be heard. It's your choice whether or not you listen. Do I believe the election was legit? I'm not talking about any of that. So having been involved in elections, having sat through recounts, I mean, I've literally sat and watched ballots be recounted. Here's something I would challenge you to think about, and I don't even want to waste the energy to go deep into that. To have legitimate nationwide election fraud, you would require thousands of people to commit felonies, thousands of people to decide that they were going to put themselves into jeopardy of going to prison for an election. So think about that. Elected officials at a county level, little county clerks. So, you know, as we're making comments like Biden sniffs children and stuff, I think all of that stuff's, you know, it's an interesting, like, little side note. This is what I'm talking about. Can we not focus on a concept or, you know, in class, if you come to one of our classes, guys will hear me pop off. Teacher Mick comes out and I say, shut the hell up and let's pay attention. I'm not telling you shut up and pay attention to me talking to you, but we can't even get on the same page to have a conversation. Our little monkey brain, it's like a little freaking squirrel in a cage, is just running around and we can't sit for a minute and just pay attention. That is what's wrong. Okay, a machine was invented to rig boats. Got it. Again, the exact point. This is the problem with America, but not just America, the world. This is why 56 men started a revolution and not 500 or 500,000. Because only 56 of them could sit and get on the same fucking page. Hundreds couldn't. The reason that we have the laws that we have is because most people can't get on the same page to do something, because they can't for a moment allow their brain to stop and just focus. Yeah, we'll come up there. Confirmation bias. We think we know a thing, and so then we look for more information to prove it. We'll be in Texas. Classes up in Texas. People ask me these questions, and I'm guessing they don't visit our website, carrytrainer.com. I guess, we could attach the idea of ADHD. I think it's just laziness and apathy. I don't believe it's like the clinical term of ADHD. I think it's people just wanting to get their fucking point across. At the end of the day, be grateful for what you have today. I'm not going to go sidelining. Just in Tennessee. I wish you guys well. I wish you love. I wish you peace. Tell somebody you love them. Do something kind for somebody today. Think about how great the world would be if instead of soaking up bunches of fake news, instead of conspiring against ourselves to live happy lives, we just began to live happy lives. And what would happen if you just began to do amazing things? Getting groceries. Going to get some vegetables. If you just began to do amazing things in the world around you, what if you were nicer to your family, nicer to your neighbors, nicer to the clerks at the store, nicer to the people at the coffee shop? What if you really injected tons of good energy? Food for thought. Be good, guys. We love you. Hope you're following this channel. If you're not, maybe you should do so. Be well.